All right, so our next two speakers are Jane Wissinger from the University of Minnesota and Cassie Javner, who is a certified lead teacher with us at Beyond Benign. And so Jane has been at the University of Minnesota since 1998 and is the Organic Chemistry Laboratory Director and a distinguished teaching professor of chemistry. And Cassie is also based in Minnesota in the United States, if I am not mistaken. So please join us in welcoming both of our speakers today. Sorry. And I will invite Jane or Cassie to share your screen and should be good.
All right, got it. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see so many of your faces on Zoom again. Cassie and I are very excited to share this talk with you on how we came together and collaborated to do what we feel is some really personally satisfying and beneficial work in the area of green chemistry across the bridge of higher education and the high school classroom. Okay, next slide. All right, just to introduce ourselves and what our background was, as Nim said, I am a professor at the University of Minnesota in the teaching line and the organic laboratory director. I also teach organic chemistry lecture classes and a senior level green chemistry class. I'm also part of an NSF funded center called the Center for Sustainable Polymers. I'll refer to this as the CSP. And that has also expanded my ability to make this collaboration and build these bridges with high school through multiple ways I'm going to share with you today, through my research program that was just catalyzed by collaborations with high school and with the center. And so that we'll each tell our story as we move forward here. Cassie?
My name is Cassie Javner. I am a high school chemistry teacher. I have taught all levels of chemistry from introductory to AP. And one thing that I've found is that regardless of the level, these partnerships are beneficial for all students. My connection with Jane is through the RET program, the Research Experience for Teachers at the University of Minnesota. That program allowed me to start this partnership with university faculty since 2015, and we have been collaborating ever since, along with the support of Beyond Benign.
Yes. Beyond Benign is a center. I just want to take a note. I should have said this first. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And also in the chat, I placed what I should have done perhaps is acknowledgement of our indigenous land, the Lakota land that the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, actually all of our university campuses acknowledge those lands. All right, so we wanted to each share our little journey, our path to get to this bridge. And so mine started in about 2003, where I added a token experiment to my organic chemistry laboratory curriculum. And it immediately drew interest from undergraduates who wanted to participate in designing new experiments, making the lab better. And so my research program started growing with undergraduates and graduate students. And through that, the department also started to see opportunity for me to share green chemistry with outreach events that brought high school students onto campus in summer programs. And also through my connection with the Center for Sustainable Polymers. Let's see, oh, you have the pointer. I can't make my own pointer. Let's see, you guys probably can't see my pointer. All right. Then the Center for Sustainable Polymers, as an NSF funded center, had started having high school teachers come. And so there was an experiment that Carla Ahrenstorff, a high school teacher that, there you go, worked with the CSP, started looking at. but it wasn't complete. As all of you know, it never takes just 10 weeks in a summer to really get a good teaching experiment. So my research group and students took over the project, and this is where we started building a network of undergraduates who wanted to become high school teachers, then being able to work on these projects. I also want to acknowledge the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and they have funding for green chemistry curriculum. And this is maybe perhaps a source many of you haven't thought about before. So this is an EPA state-funded center, and they were supporting curriculum. And this also gave me some resources to start building the programs. In Minnesota, we also had a Minnesota Green Chemistry Forum that was centered with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and local companies such as Aveda, and 3M, that was promoting green chemistry in the state. And we were attending things like the Minnesota Educators Conferences. So lots of connections coming together to build these bridges. In around 2016, one of our professors, one of my colleagues in the department, Professor Lee Penn, was working with Cassie Leiden, and she was interested in someone coming into her classroom to talk about green chemistry with her AP students. So I raised my hand as fast as I could and went to her classroom, bringing in a new experiment. And that started that one connection in the classroom. I had been in some other classrooms, but it was sporadic, you know, here and there. And we'll talk more about how that just doesn't seem enough to go into one classroom at a time. But of course, Cassie had some ideas for improving what I was doing and also the materials. And that's when she started working with me in this another NSF funded center, Materials Research Science and Engineering program that had this research experience for teachers, where high school teachers come on campus and work with a faculty member. Then as we're talking about green chemistry, of course, I have to bring up Beyond Benign as a resource for K through 12. The University of Minnesota was one of the first green chemistry commitment signers. I've been going to conferences, learning about Beyond Benign in all different ways. And so I'm gonna and that's how Cassie J, so I've been working with Cassie and Cassie these years. And she'll continue that story. But to finish my story, what I do want to emphasize is just the opportunities and joy it's brought me to have undergraduates who really want to come in and learn green chemistry. And many of them now, like Nina, is a high school teacher, part of programs, designing new experiments that we'll talk about. We'll give you a few examples of those, and participating in outreach with me. Okay.
All right, so I fit into this web with the other Cassie. She was my student teacher advisor back in 13. So she started inspiring me from the beginning to start exploring green chemistry, which is another opportunity for sharing that outreach, as Jane mentioned, with those pre-service teachers. I have been a RET participant at the University of Minnesota, working in both a protein engineering lab and designing an experiment, and then connecting with Jane in 2016, working on experiments involving polymers and green chemistry. Through the Center for Sustainable Polymers, myself and Cassie were able to take the Beyond Benign introductory course on green chemistry to build that foundational knowledge in the principles that then we would be able to share. After that, I was able to become a Beyond Benign lead teacher and had my service for 2017 to 2020. And through that time, we've been able to use the knowledge from Beyond Benign to facilitate our green chemistry workshop and continue to share this knowledge with other educators in Minnesota. The last piece is that coming full circle this summer, I will be sharing the knowledge as the instructor of the introductory green chemistry course with Beyond Benign. So a little bit of a plug for that. It's how I got it started, and it's taken me very far with the information from that course. So myself and Jane both have this enthusiasm and these ideas for sharing experiments and green chemistry with a broader audience of both teachers and students. We want to spread it past just one teacher or one colleague. And so we had the idea, or Jane had the idea, I should say, to host a green chemistry workshop that we made available for Minnesota high school teachers. This platform would allow us to share experiments and information about green chemistry with an even wider audience. This workshop or these programs, though, are not possible without lots of funding. And so reaching out to organizations, Center for Sustainable Polymers, MRSEC, and the Minnesota Corn Growers Association were all vital in making this workshop happen. The Corn Growers Association had a special interest with PLA, the polylactic acid, the sustainable polymer that we were using. So it kind of all came together to create this green chemistry workshop.
All right, so how did this happen? It could not have happened without the combined expertise that we had working together, and you know, such a synergistic experience in learning what happens in the high school classroom and sharing my knowledge. And so, you know, I have resources that the Cassie and Cassie didn't have. For example, just access to the Journal of Chemical Education, seeing what's out there, coming up with other programs. I mean, high school teachers don't generally have that resource to share. So sharing those databases and the knowledge. Certainly, I've gained a lot of experience from designing my own experiments for the undergraduate curriculum that spanned everywhere from general chemistry, a lot for organic, and then for a senior level polymer class. I'm not a polymer chemist, so I've had to learn that, and we've all continued to learn together. Our undergraduate researchers, my undergraduate researchers also are contributing with their ideas and enthusiasm. And then I have run other workshops. So I was pretty knowledgeable about how to get people on campus, what resources there were. As far as, I ran a workshop on teaching guided inquiry laboratories from another NSF funding. And so I was gung-ho and asked the Cassies to join me. Of course, I have no idea what happens in a high school classroom. And so truly humiliating experience to go in and see what a high school teacher has to accomplish in such a short amount of time, knowing all this national standards, which is pages and pages of criteria that have to be met. And then Cassie became very familiar with the Beyond Benign labs, and so they could select a great portfolio of experiments for us to include in our workshop. And it has worked out great. Next slide. So we've run the workshop for 4 years. We did decide not to do it last year. In 2020, we did it virtually, and that worked out pretty well. But we are covering the state of Minnesota. We do have applicants from other states, and we're thinking of expanding maybe to the Midwest. But we are running our workshop again in 2022. But it's been very successful, I think, for multiple reasons. One is we are in Minneapolis, St. Paul, so lots of lots of teachers coming locally, but also you can see from all over the state, and having the resources to have them come for 3 days. So if we select the right amount of days, a whole full week's too much. High school teachers value their summers, of course, provide a stipend for them to come, provide materials, and then have a continuing program where they learn and build a curriculum, implement it, and report back to us. So I think that really engages the teachers in follow through. And we've had really, really favorable feedback on not only the time for the teachers to get into the lab and run the experiments themselves. That was really, really valued. There's also time for teachers to be able to build their plan. Many of them came with another fellow teacher or group of teachers so they could work together so that all the chemistry classes or whatever was working for a plan across the different classrooms. Cassie, do you want to add anything to this slide too about the workshop before you go on?
I know that I was able to bring some of my colleagues from my school, and I know the other Cassie was as well. And so Jane mentioned the importance of having a team, and it really helps to spread this outreach when all members of a chemistry department are on board and trained and knowledgeable in green chemistry. And it allows it to grow even more than it could as an individual. So it's been really beneficial for that as well, to have those teams of teachers at the workshop.
I want to say one more thing about also bringing in teachers from rural communities. And this was where the Minnesota Corn Growers Association really wanted us to reach out to these communities with teachers with less resources, and also share how what many of them are doing, growing corn, how that's being converted into the most successful bioplastic in the world, PLA. And so that's been a real good connection to make.
So at these workshops, one thing we found that was very important was to share the replacement experiments from Beyond Benign. These ones are experiments where you're swapping out a more hazardous traditional experiment that is commonly used or taught in the classroom, and bringing in something that is safe for both students and the environment. As a high school teacher, we are able to evaluate these experiments, and we kind of chose the most popular or kind of the most easily replaceable experiments to use at the workshop, and also ones that we can showcase a variety of green chemistry principles. Also, feedback from teachers each year allowed us to modify some of the replacement experiments included. And we've also gained a lot of ideas from other teachers on extensions or different ways of looking at these topics. We also tried to work on incorporating biomimicry and environmental topics to connect to those concepts that students find engaging and interesting. So if you haven't checked out the Beyond Benign website, all of those replacement experiments are there. Another benefit of this university partnership is, as Jane mentioned, exposure to the Journal of Chemical Education and other experiments that wouldn't otherwise be possible. One that we did at our workshop was the polymeric medical sutures, where students use the polymer polycaprolactone to draw and create threads. So this is an experiment that Jane has worked to develop. I have brought it into my chemistry classrooms as well at both the AP and general level, and students have a blast. I don't know if you can see this person holding up that suture that's almost to the ceiling. It allows them to explore renewability, degradability, and strength. This has been a great experiment that's been used in summer programs and high school classrooms around the state. My students were able to collect data and results and actually present at a poster session at the University of Minnesota on this. So continuing to grow that network by bringing my high school students into the university setting to learn how science works and how we share results. This has also resulted in a publication in JChemEd where we're trying to further share that knowledge with as many teachers and students as possible. So this is an experiment that we did at our workshop and that we also send home participants with kind of starter kits so teachers can start using it in their classrooms right away. Another experiment that we wanted to highlight that is a result of this partnership is the Make It, Break It experiment. This one is a great way to introduce sustainability, green chemistry, and innovations right away at the beginning of a school year. It incorporates all household materials and uses 3 types of starches and additives to create a variety of bioplastic. Students use engineering principles through tensile testing to analyze their bioplastics and then work to design a better bioplastic. So it's been really great to show these experiments to other teachers throughout the state and give teachers new and exciting ways to introduce students to green chemistry innovations and the problem of plastic pollution, and show how we can use something like corn, and we're currently creating these solutions to solve these problems with materials all around us.
All right, so this is our last summary slide, and what I want to do is emphasize just the continued opportunities that our collaboration in building our bridge has provided both of us, both at the high school and the college level. We've had the opportunity to present these, our results and the experiments, and also the workshop at national, state, and local meetings. We were invited as guest speakers at the state Minnesota's Teachers Association meetings. We've worked together to publish 5 different middle school, high school level experiments in the Journal of Chemical Education, as well as contributing to our workshop design and invited public ACS symposium series on the award we won for the workshop in sustainability and education. The Minnesota Corn Growers Association and the CSP is thrilled, and the MRSEC, they're just thrilled with the results, and they want to encourage us to continue to have our workshop again and enthusiastically supporting us. I personally benefited. I have probably 10 to 12 students that have come to work in my labs that are now high school teachers in the state of Minnesota and Texas and other states. And so it's always so rewarding to see green chemistry being spread out in the high school community. I have a student, our most recent publication is a student that was in Cassie Leiden's high school chemistry class, and she really did not like chemistry. She did not like chemistry, but she liked the green chemistry. She came to the University of Minnesota, took my lab class. She then did her senior honors thesis in my lab, and now she's a high school teacher. So it's a great, great story there to share. The RET program also continues, and we're just having a great time building new curriculum that includes green chemistry, shares the work of Beyond Benign with others. So thank you all for your attention. I saw some good questions in the chat popping up that we are happy to answer.
Thank you very much for that wonderful talk. And thank you also just in general to our speakers, especially Ken and Cassie. I know that you've taken time out of your schedules to be here today. And so thank you especially for that. I think if we do have a couple minutes, we can do a little bit of Q&A. Cassie, if you're able to stick around, unless you have to leave. And then we'll take a short break and we can continue the Q&A after the break.
I would say one question I saw that Cassie and I could address together is how much of this can be done at home. And we were really pretty successful with our workshop that was virtual in being able to collect or make kits of almost everything, you know, pea powder and everything the teachers would need. And then we had virtual, you know, experiment time, you know, especially edible water capsules from calcium alginates, one of our newest projects that's a collaboration with Benign that's just got published in the Journal of Chemical Education. So many of the experiments from Beyond Benign and the sustainable polymers we've developed can be done outside the classroom and safely.
And a lot of those materials, in addition, can just be like acquired at a grocery store. And so that, I guess, the kind of kitchen chemistry to a certain extent is possible. And it's nice sometimes if you need lab materials, you can just run out to the store and get what you need.
All right, well, thank you to everyone, to Jane, to Cassie, Anne and Ken, Andy and Ken for their great talks. And why don't we take a quick 5-minute break, and then when we return, there will be some breakout room discussions where if Jane and Ken, you are still able to stick around for the second half, we can continue maybe some separate Q&As in those breakout room discussions to kind of keep that conversation going. But for now, please join me in thanking our speakers for today.